Call this meeting of the Anchorage Assembly to order, beginning with a roll call.
Mr. Birch.
Here.
Mr. Flynn. Ms. Johnston. Ms. Johnston is joining us by phone. Mr. Tromley.
Here.
Mr. Starr.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Ms. Osiander.
Here.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Honored to be here.
Mr. Honeman.
Here.
Mr. Trainee.
Here.
And Ms. Drummond. Here. Madam Chair, we have quorum.
Very good. Mr. Starr, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Akalis, I see that the mayor isn't here, but do you have any report to give in his stead?
I do not, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. I do have a few remarks. I want to share with people that obviously the Assembly is continuing to focus on this recent election. And as I am sure many of you have already guessed, there will not be a certification vote this evening, as originally we had planned. The Elections Commission is still working. They anticipate finishing their count by Friday, but they also want to give us a report that includes more than just the count. We talked to them on Monday, and they said that they want to give us some recommendations and remarks. At this time, I'm tentatively assuming that that will be ready for the 24th. I have assured them that they should take all the time they need to do this correctly and thoroughly, and to let us know if there's anything we can do to assist the process. My sense is that our recent work session was productive. I believe that we were able to answer some questions, but we certainly have opened up to others. I want to thank Ms. Drummond for already sending in her additional questions. Thank you. At this point, it's my sense that many precincts were given insufficient ballots, numbers, and that there were problems and challenges with our process for late delivery of ballots. I also believe that our election manual needs work. Over the past week, I've had some very valuable conversations with precinct workers, and I've come to the belief that there is some value in having an independent investigator to help us clarify these kind of issues a little more clearly. I did note, going back and looking at the '89 situation, that at that time the Election Commission was tasked with interviewing and getting further reports from precinct workers, which was interesting. And that time they had a greater number of question ballots than not question ballots, people who came forward and said they had not been able to vote than we currently have. Mr. Hall and I have been discussing names and process for an independent investigator, and so I plan on continuing to speak up and bring forth concerns or issues that I have that such an investigation could warrant, and I urge other Assembly members to do the same. I do want to note, too, for those of you who asked, we received at our work session a binder with some materials inside, and those materials have now been placed on the web. Unfortunately, as many of you noted, our web page was down today, and as I understand it, will be down until tomorrow. Is that correct? Lance, is that correct?
The latest message I had is that we expect it up shortly.
Okay, we expect the web page up shortly. So those of you who contacted me requesting an agenda for tonight, our apologies, we're working on it. The next immediate step in the election review process for this body is certainly going to be that certification vote. And so I want to urge all members to please think about what additional information we each individually need in order to make a decision about that. and to submit any questions or additional information requests to the chair so that the questions can be forwarded out to the appropriate person. I also want to remind you all that we have a work session this Friday from 11 to 1 on first quarter budget amendments, and I believe our budget chair requested that budget amendments be handed in by tomorrow, Mr. Starr?
Tomorrow, business closed. I'll speak to that.
Okay.
Get the committee report.
All right. This has been an eventful year, and it's gone very, very quickly. I want to express my sincere thank you to this body and appreciation for your help with me and support in serving as your chair this year. I also want to say a particular thank you to my vice chair. Mr. Hall's been great this year. He has actually stepped in and helped me through a lot of difficult points, and a sincere thank you. So, we are doing our transition later on this evening. At this point, though, I'd like to hear from committee reports and comments. Ms. Drummond, do you want to start?
I haven't got any. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Greeny?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Honeman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a fairly good meeting at the Public Safety Committee today in advance of tonight's meeting, particularly regarding to new liquor license application for All Bush liquor store / retail shipping. And Mr. Dudley, Dan Dudley, came and gave a more in-depth synopsis and overview of his concern on the rotating toothbrush. We do have some recommendations for the body, which of course I'll bring through, and I think Ms. Moser, the licensing clerk, will be able to help us with at least further explaining the status for All Bush when we get to that point on the agenda. And because we have 5 Wednesdays in May, I'd like to schedule the next Public Safety Committee meeting on Wednesday the 16th, if that's possible, if that fits within the agendas. And we'll make sure we secure an appropriate room. I expect to see perhaps someone from the University Area Community Council reference some diesel fumes of the bus area where they're the Anchor School District buses, and they start up in the wintertime. And also Mr. Agri and someone from the reference fluoride in the water. We're going to give them a little more time to do his presentation. So pretty productive meeting all in all, and we'll give some good recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Honeman. Ms. Gray Jackson?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hall?
No, thank you.
Mr. Starr?
Yeah, Budget and Finance Committee meeting. I'm going to cancel it for this Thursday. There really isn't any, as I previously announced, we weren't going to really act on any items other than kind of coordinate perhaps duplicate amendments and things, but they seem to be coming in fairly light. So the idea here is to go ahead and continue to take amendments through perhaps Thursday noon or thereabouts, and then I'll work with Barbara and we'll clerically package them for the work session on Friday. The tone of the work session on Friday would be perhaps that every amendment tendered would be presented by their maker for a brief discussion. Of course, we don't take action at work sessions, but the idea there is to have them out in front of us for action next meeting on the 24th, which we're getting kind of tight on time. If we don't approve the budget on the 24th or the first quarter amendment adjustments, we would then have to have a special meeting in order to get the tax bills out on time. So the meeting this Thursday for Budget and Finance Committee formally canceled, and then our work session, I believe, is at 11 o'clock on Friday.
Very good.
2 hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trombley?
No report.
Ms. Johnston?
The committee met last Thursday, and we had 4 enterprise groups that have budget amendments: AWW, the Port, ML&P, and Merrill Field. And I've sent each of you a report from that committee meeting, and you should be getting some additional information, particularly from AWW and ML&P on the Friday work session. Thank you.
Madam Chair, are they going to formally package those amendments into a readable format? Can Jennifer urge that, please?
Ms. Johnson, did you hear the question?
They should be coming from the administration.
Okay. Can you just be sure that they're to us by Friday, Jennifer? That would be helpful so we could consider them over the weekend for...
Right.
Thank you.
Right. I will.
Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick announcement that the AMATS Policy Committee meeting that was previously scheduled for the 26th of this month has been postponed to May 3rd. And similarly, the TAC meeting, which would have been this Thursday, is now next Thursday. And that's just so there's appropriate time to absorb, process, and pass on recommendations of the actions we took last week with the MTP. And so whomever the next chair appoints to be on AMATS better mark that on their calendar.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Birch?
No report.
All right, thank you. With that, there is one late on the table item. Is there a motion for incorporate?
So moved.
Second.
Is there objection to incorporation? And that was with a public hearing date of May 8th on that item. And, all right, seeing no objection to incorporation, then I will read that item into the record. This is for introduction with public hearing on May 8th. It's A041. It's an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code Chapter 16.65 to add a non-transferable limited exception for a private club licensed as of July 1st, 2007 for the sale of alcohol beverages and in current operation. And I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, if I could. All right. With that, the amended consent agenda is before us.
Second.
All right. Is that the consent agenda is before us? Is there anything anybody wants to discuss? Seeing none, please vote on the amended consent agenda.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. And that passes unanimously. We're now at our regular agenda, and the only real item here is some old business, 11A. This is AR 94. It's a resolution of the Assembly approving an alcohol beverage conditional use for a package store use and license number 5120 in the I-1 district for Kyle Ivanoff, DBA All Bush, at 801 East 82nd Avenue, Unit B14, located within Bella Vista 2 subdivision. And I'm trying to look if what motion we had on the floor. I don't have that.
The motion to approve is on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn.
I have an amendment, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Starr, state your amendment.
It should all be in front of us here, but modifying Section 2 on page 2 of line 26.
And I second.
Do you want to speak to it, sir?
I would. Do I need to read it into the record? Or
That
can
would
you
be
guys get it?
helpful.
Basically, it's a new section which reads, failure to comply with the provisions of Alaska Statute 04.11.150 and Regulation 13 of the Alaska Code 14.645 of the Alcohol Beverage Control Board with regard to written orders for alcohol beverages shall mandate a review of this conditional use by the Anchorage Assembly for the purpose of reviewing, amending, or revoking this conditional use permit.
All right. Mr. Holman, did you want to discuss the amendment?
Yes, and I want to thank Mr. Starr for actually taking the extra effort, and you probably all received his email. He actually did more than just put the amendment together. He copied regulations under 13 AAC as well as Title 28 and, Title 4 of the Alaska statute. So good work, Mr. Starr. Thanks for the extra effort and putting together. Talked with both business partners, Mr. Ivanoff and his partner. The name escapes me again today at the moment. I don't see him in the audience. But they were not objecting to the condition being added under their conditional use requirements. They actually presented an application in written form for orders coming from outside of Anchorage that stipulates the red stripe requirement, and a signatory that they're 21 years of age, that the alcohol they're purchasing is not for resale and will not be allowed in places that it's not permitted under the law. So a very good effort on their part. We actually made a recommendation to put one more sentence in that they're not that they certify they're not prohibited from purchasing alcohol on their form. And the other thing, I'd ask Ms. Moser if she could kind of give us information about the latest of the ABC requirements and their appearance before their body.
Through the chair, I have spoken with the ABC board regarding this application, and they go before the ABC board on the May 16th meeting, and normally it would be part of the consent agenda, but the chairman of the board has requested it goes before for board consideration, so it'll actually be discussed. The ABC board has also submitted questions to the applicant, and they are still waiting on responses to those questions, but they want to know the business hours that they will be open to the public for purchases from the store, the intention to sell liquor orders to rural Alaska, if they intend to do that, and what portion of the gross sales do they see as being the main focus of the business, whether it be the Bush orders or the store orders, and then also including additional information that explains the nature of your business plan. So this is being reviewed at the ABC board level also.
One last thing, at the conclusion of the meeting, and again, I just have to reiterate that the applicants were very cooperative, very much supportive of whatever conditions we placed. But I will say that the CAP team lieutenant with the chief of police were even discussing in anticipation what potential problems could be from the store being so close to Little Campbell Lake nearby, and their concerns, and they're actually speaking, being proactive and going out and engaging the business so that they could try to avert any potential problems for the neighborhood. So I think it's, with the scrutiny they're getting from ABC and with our conditions, and thanks to Mr. Starr again, I'd recommend approval. I believe the members of the body that were there for the Public Safety Committee speak, and I speak for them as well.
Thank you, Mr. Oman. Mr. Flynn?
Yeah, what's the fine for your phone going off while you're reading an amendment into the record?
That's not covered in policy, Mr. Flynn.
Oh, sorry, just curious. Nothing further.
All right. Mr. Oman, you're back in queue. Did you have something else?
No, that's it.
All right. Seeing no one else in the queue, please vote on approval of the amendment. Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
The amendment is approved unanimously. Is there any further discussion on the main matter? Mr. Flynn? No? Okay. Please vote on the amended ordinance. Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
That is approved unanimously. We have no appearance requests and no further public hearings, so at this time we are on assembly reorganization. And, Mr. Starr, you want to make a comment?
No, to this.
Okay. At this point, I am going to take nominations for chair.
I nominate Ernie Hall.
Second.
Mr. Hall has been nominated. Are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion for unanimous consent on that? Or?
So moved.
All right. Is there any
Yes.
Any objection? Congratulations, Mr. Hall. Give me a moment to move.
You can have Jennifer's chair.
That would probably be best, actually, wouldn't it? Hold on. I'm sorry, Mr. Hall, it's going to take two trips.
That's fine. I was under the assumption the chocolate bars would remain.
Thanks, sir.
And Ms. Osiander, my first order of business, I would like to present to you a gavel on behalf of the body showing you our appreciation for a job very well done for this last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Our next order of business for the evening will be the election of the vice chair. The floor is now open for nominations.
I nominate Ms. Johnson. Second.
Okay. Ms. Drummond.
I nominate Elvie Gray Jackson.
Second.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing and hearing none, the nominations are closed. We'll pass out ballots.
Hi, you can do my name.
Too late, Jennifer. We got it. We got your vote.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 6 for Ms. Johnston and 5 for Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
before we continue,
Yes, Ms.
I'd
Gray Jackson.
just like to say thank you to my colleagues, number one, for nominating me, and for the 5 votes that I got, including myself. I was truly honored to get those 5 votes, and I know I would have done a fine job, but I wish Ms. Johnson well on her new role as Vice Chair and that leadership role. Thank you, Madam. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Gray Jackson. I would like to share a few comments with you quickly before we finish up our agenda for today. And basically that being, I would love to be moving into this seat under better circumstances than what I am, because we are dealing with a situation that weighs heavy on this entire community. And I really want to assure you it weighs no more heavy on any of you than it does the 11 of us sitting up here. There's no one sitting on this side of this podium that doesn't take this as serious as anything that any of us have ever dealt with. And I want to assure you that when we get concluded with this, we will have answered all of your questions, and we will ensure that this never occurs within this municipality again. I want to tell my colleagues that Mr. Trainey has been very gracious in agreeing to be the amalgamator for me. Any input that each of you individually have in regards to the third-party investigation, please forward that information to Mr. Trainey. He would like you to email it to him. It'll make it easier for him to put all of the information together and get that forwarded to me. And I will take each and every bit of that and incorporate it into what we're going to be doing with that third party. We're at that time in the day we have no unfinished agendas, so we're at audience participation. Do we have anyone that wishes to speak? Anyone at all? Good evening.
Good evening. Congratulations, Mr. Hall.
Thank you.
My name is Linda Kellen Beagle. and I sent this to you in email, but it was late, so I just wanted to get this in the record. You now have all the evidence you need that there needs to be an independent investigation out of the mouth of Deputy Municipal Clerk Jacqueline Duke. From a story by election researcher Brad Friedman, Duke confirmed to me that she had instructed poll workers not to worry if security seals on memory cards are found broken when setting up machines on Election Day. They come sealed in the AccuVote cases, and oftentimes in transit, they bust off because they're the flimsiest pieces of plastic ever, she told me. Sometimes that leads poll workers to freak out. Perhaps they would freak out because this was in direct conflict with the instructions in the official Municipality of Anchorage Elections Manual, AccuVote Opening Instructions, Step 5, Number 2. Make sure the small silver bar covering the memory card on the front of the AccuVote unit is sealed and the seal is not broken. Just like there is no procedure listed for what to do if a precinct runs out of ballots, while the book makes it clear that it's a bad thing for the seals to be broken, there is no procedure on what to do if they are. Perhaps that is why folks would, in Duke's words, freak out if a seal was broken. Duke continues. She tells them that if they open the case and can obviously tell the broken seal was from transport, you do not have to be worried. There are more seals in your supplies. Duke instructs the workers to reseal it and then run the zero report tape to confirm that your poll count is zero. You all have a link to the Brad blog story, and you can go ahead and read that as to why that's a bad thing. So if that is a legal procedure, why isn't it written in the manual? Why do we not see anything about extra seals in the manual? Could it be because it clearly contradicts the warning given poll workers that the seal should not be broken? I don't believe you need anything else to show you that an independent investigation is required. There is no need to wait on any report from the Anchorage Election Commission. This isn't their ballywick. And that's not part of my email. I just wanted to say, if a defense attorney in the court of law can prove that the chain of custody has been broken, they don't have to prove that anything happened to the evidence for it to be thrown out, and maybe even the case thrown out. And in an election, we're using electronic machines. It's every bit as important that the chain of custody not be broken for the memory cards as it is for the ballots. And we have proof that that is not the case here in Anchorage. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. There is no questions.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else at all?
Good evening. My name is Wanda Green. I'm president of the NAACP. Before I get started, I have some letters that I would like to give to Madam Clerk. I'm afraid the names have changed, though. You just had your election.
Okay. Thank you.
The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, is nonpartisan civil rights organization. Our mission is to fight any form of discrimination, but it also is to ensure the political, educational, social, and economic equality for all citizens. Voting in an election is one of the most important things that we do in our lives. It gives us the opportunity to be heard and to express our desires regardless of who we are, our origin, our beliefs, or our political affiliation. One commonality that binds us is our right to vote. However, voting is much more than just marking a ballot and placing it in a box. We all know that is just part of the process. The other part is the assurance that every single vote is counted. You cannot have one half of the process without the other and declare a successful election. But what can be declared is an election that is suspect. April 3rd, 2012's election is nothing short of disturbing. Reports of not having enough ballots, people being turned away from the polls, people unable to vote, faulty machinery, inaccurate ballot counts are just simply unacceptable in this day and age and in 2012. There are many in the community questioning the validity of this election. For the NAACP in particular, easy access to the ballot box, the assurance that every ballot counts, and the outcome of the election must be trusted in order for it to be a true democracy. If we have legitimate, and let me repeat that, if we have legitimate grounds to seriously wonder about any of these things, then it infringes upon our civil rights, and the results of any election are meaningless. It is because of the aforementioned concerns that the NAACP Anchorage is calling for an independent investigation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no tests.
I'm sorry?
No question.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, guys. My name is still Tim Pearson, P-E-R-S-O-N. We're days and days out from an election right now. You guys know, I think just as well as I do, that as time passes, memory clouds. I've been assured by several people on the body that this election will be investigated. My comment is, if it's not being investigated today, if it's not being investigated yesterday, if it's not being investigated last Thursday, you guys have waited way, way too long. The chance of getting accurate information as the hours tick by, those chances get lower and lower and lower. Please act on this sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good afternoon. My name is Jeffrey Mittman, Executive Director of the ACLU Alaska. Congratulations, Mr. Hall. I should say Chairman Hall.
Thank you.
I've presented to the clerk a sworn affidavit. I appreciate the Assembly's work session. I appreciate indications that we are moving forward with an independent investigator. The ACLU is gravely concerned with a few things. One, that we have not yet appointed an investigator. As the Assembly is aware, for 2 weeks we've been working on obtaining evidence. This is not an easy or quick process. It takes time to contact individuals. It takes time to take their statements and interview them. It takes time to reduce those to writing and get them sworn into an acceptable evidentiary process. I presented to you another voter who went to Nunaka Valley Elementary School at 6:15, was told to come back in 15 minutes when there would be ballots. She was turned away and said there were no ballots. She came back half an hour later, 6:45. She was told there are no more ballots and they would be getting none. This seems to contradict some indications of what was stated at last Friday's work session. She left Nunaka Elementary, went to Lutheran Church, informed there were no ballots at Lutheran Church, was told to try UAA. She wanted to go to close locations so she would not miss her opportunity to vote, went to Chester Valley, which had no ballots, and then went to College Gate, which had no ballots. This voter has sworn under her statement before a notary that 4 polling locations told her she could not vote, they had no ballots. Finally, she was told she could go to UAA. She got there at 8:05, and it was too late. She could not vote. I will provide another affidavit to the Assembly. Somebody went to Bayshore at 6:30 p.m., was told there were no ballots and they would be not getting any. Went to Mears Junior High. As she walked out of her car, she was told that people were leaving. The line at Mears was out the front door and down the sidewalk. In line, some people told me they were supposed to vote at Klatt Elementary. Finally, a poll worker came out. He said they only had a few ballots left, so if Mears was not our regular polling place, we had to go UAA. At about 7:30, they were told they were totally out of ballots and no one would be able to vote there, that they would have to go to the rental counter at the airport and had to be there by 8 p.m., which was impossible. We were further troubled by indications at the Friday work session that, quote, only 17 people had informed the municipality they were unable to vote. We have apparently notes from the poll worker at Klatt Elementary School. Quote, the election staff turned away voters for 2 hours with notes apparently indicating that over 150 voters were turned away. We are very concerned. The level of disenfranchisement that occurred 2 weeks ago is not 17. It's not the 150 people that have contacted the ACLU. We do not know the number. It is past time. I appreciate the Assembly. Many of you have reached out to me. I understand we're moving forward. My concern is we cannot certify election when we do not know if 150 people at 50 ballot precinct locations each were unable to vote, that's 7,500 voters. Before we certify, we need to know the level of disenfranchisement. I'll provide further notes to the Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Osiander.
Mr. Mittman, are you ready yet to be able to share your database with the city? We haven't been able to get it yet.
Absolutely. What we, through the chair, Ms. Osiander, thank you. What I would like to do is work with the Assembly on what would be preferable to you. What we have been very careful to do is not to present you with rumor or innuendo or hearsay. We have been trying to present you with factual data. That's why we're providing sworn affidavits as they arrive. If it is helpful to you to see the comments we have raised, I'm more than happy to do that. But I don't want to leave the impression that we believe that all of these individuals have been disenfranchised.
No, I appreciate that. The comments that have been received on the city, I don't want to call it a hotline, but the web address have been just that, comment. Some of them are specific and some of them are general. So I think the city's able to weigh through them, but it's helpful to get them.
Sure. Through the chair, another concern is it appears to us, and correct me if I'm wrong, that until yesterday, it was not easy to see on the municipal website where a voter should contact the municipality. We were checking the site last weekend, and up until Friday, again, I can submit the screenshots. If you wanted to call the municipality to complain that you were not able to vote, it really was not easy to find the number. I believe as of yesterday that has been changed. But again, this is the delay of time that we're concerned about.
Thank you. Mr. Honeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And perhaps this is through the clerk's office as well as Mr. Mittman. Have you heard from anybody who had applied for an absentee ballot not in town and either didn't get a ballot or it was rejected? I have heard from one person who later received a note after the vote within a couple of days saying that they couldn't find a record of her and she'd been a lifelong Alaskan. Have you heard anything?
Through the chair, Mr. Assemblymember Honeman, we are looking at that. I do have another affidavit, an individual who has been registered in Eagle River for 23 years and has voted within the municipality of Anchorage for 30 years, who received one of these letters from the clerk saying your vote will not count because you're not registered. So again, a variety of issues. We're attempting to go through them as quickly as we can. This is, again, why we urge the Assembly. It is important to act sooner rather than later. I appreciate that we were trying to wait for the work session. We do have a concern that it will take a while for an independent council to get up and running. There are a lot of issues here. There is a lot of information that was represented at the work session regarding what the clerk's office had told poll workers, which very much differs what individuals are saying under sworn affidavit they were told by poll workers. Not impugning the goodwill or the hard efforts of all of those poll workers, but our sense, our impression from the statements we've been receiving is that Tuesday night 2 weeks ago was essentially fairly chaotic, which you would expect, and there were very many people who could not vote, not through not trying, not through not willing to wait around, but being told, we have no ballots, you must go elsewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Mittman.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Assembly members. My name is Barbara Gazaway. You probably received information from my husband and an electronic file from us. We had started a petition online because of concerns that we had. I am a poll worker. I was a chair in the last election, and I have been a chair at our precinct for the last 4 elections. This election was a little bit different than the other ones that I had worked. Let me just give you some of the circumstances that I noted. We did have enough materials. About mid-afternoon, I noticed we were running short, and I called the troubleshooter and was brought materials within a good period of time so that we had more than enough. What was troubleshooter related was that she was scurrying all around town. The geographic area that she was given to service was not compact. She had to travel to many different places, which made it difficult to get to various places on time. She did get to us quite timely, and she spent some time with us, helping us, and one of the issues that we had was the debolt machine. When I was here for the work session and I heard Ms. Matthews say that there had been no trouble with the debolt machine, I was concerned because we did have a lot of trouble with our debolt machine. We tried putting ballots in every which way and they spit back. That had never happened before. And we also, at the end of the evening, you put an ender card in the machine which tells the machine the voting's over. Well, the machine wouldn't take the card. I guess it wanted to keep voting. I just wanted to keep the ballots coming, but it just would not take the card. We tried every which way. There even was another card inside the compartment that held the AccuVote machine. We used the second card. It didn't take the second card. We called the troubleshooter. She told us to pack up, get everything put away, and she would be there as soon as she could make it. We had to wait. We had everything put away. We had to wait about 40 minutes before she came to take care of that machine. When she did come, she at first didn't know what to do. She pulled out a spray can and sprayed the opening to clear the dust. She said maybe it's dusty. And then we bumped the machine a couple of times, and finally she looked in her book, and the book said turn it off. So she turned it off, turned it on, and we tried the ender card again, and then it went through. Packed up our things and brought them to City Hall. I do want to say that I worked 15 and a half hours that day at no pay. I volunteered because I did not fill out the paperwork. Now, going to our petition, we have 700 people that have signed the petition. It's an online petition. And if you have the time to look at the comments, about half the people that signed the petition make comments. And they're very concerning comments. Some of them tell of their experiences. There's some poll workers that have made comments. And the experiences that they've had are quite compelling. I would really encourage you to take the time to look at those comments online.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I have a question for you from Mr. Trainee.
You worked with the debolt machines before. Was this the first year you've had this problem with debolt machines?
Yes, it was.
How many years have you worked with that machine?
4 years.
4 years, and this is the first time?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. There are no more questions. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello. My name is Dr. Colleen Murphy, and I'm very familiar with risk management. This is a risk management issue. Assembly, you are looking at very high levels of litigation and cost of this process. There is litigation at all levels pending. And guess what? You have the deepest pocket. So litigation, that is all in the back of your minds, and it should be. Accountability, not only the re-election of our mayor, but the re-election of yourselves. It is time for leadership. It is time for common sense. You should not delay this investigation any further. There is concerns around voter apathy. There's concerns about assembly apathy. The longer you wait, the more apathetic you appear, because the investigation needs to be done now, as previously stated, because the facts are disappearing and people are covering themselves. We know that. In medicine, we likewise do something where we investigate a sentinel event. This is a sentinel event. Never has there been so many glaring levels of incompetence. Just like in medicine, it's usually not a single process. It's a multi-process error where the checks and balances were not in place. And there are so many levels here. The longer you delay, the more foolish everyone looks. The time is now. These words, inaction, indecisiveness, apathy, incompetence, multi-system failure. Let's all take credit for this. Voters have shown apathy. Guess what? This is an opportunity. This is not a calamity. You could so attract voters to the workplace if you go ahead and re-examine our system. The longer we wait, the longer we have these Diebold machines in place, and we have an upcoming election. Do we want this degree of problems to exist into November? No, we do not. We don't want this to ever happen again. So again, I believe there's a lack of leadership, that I'm speaking to you to be leaders now. This is common sense. The facts are indisputable. People did not get to vote. There is disenfranchisement. There's apathy. You can cure voter apathy by taking our voting process seriously. What are the costs of an independent investigation versus the cost of delay? What is the cost of litigation? And what will be the eventual cost of conducting another election? The longer you wait, the more cost is going to be involved. In medicine, we call it zero defect. We should have zero defects to protect our right to vote. So again, these words I leave you with: inaction, indecision, apathy on the part of leadership, voters, process, and you will be held accountable at your own re-election. I encourage you to conduct common sense decision making and not delay that any longer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else at all?
Hello, my name is Phyllis Spencer Bells, and I am a resident of Anchorage, Alaska. And I just want to say, with all the litigation costs and everything else, I mean, why don't you just cut it out and have a re-election? I mean, just do it again. This is insane. It's a drain on our system. It's a drain on our society. Your municipality of Anchorage is crying broke. You wouldn't even have a police academy. You're saying you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't have this, and you can't have that. And now you're trying to have all these attorneys paid for simply to hide whatever your mistakes were. That's wrong. Why do the voters and why do the residents of the municipality of Anchorage have to pay for lawyers? Why don't we just have another election? What are you so afraid of? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Melissa Green. Congratulations, Chairman Hall.
Thank you.
I wasn't intending to speak, but the last comment made me have to get up and speak. It's too simple to simply say we need a re-election. That may be what comes out of this, part of what comes out of this, but under no circumstances should this election that happened just be pushed aside without investigation. Linda Killen-Beagle earlier brought up the statements made by Jacqueline Duke to Brad Freeman of the Brad blog, in which she confirmed that she had instructed election workers to ignore broken seals of the memory cards on the machines. There was a real possibility that this election was tampered with, along with all the other problems that this election has. A recount, a hand count of the paper ballots needs to be done. We need to find out if there was tampering. We need to find out who the wrongdoers were, if there were wrongdoers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else at all?
Hi, my name is Wendy Isbell. I worked on the polls. I worked at Romig Junior High. I went to the training that Jacqueline Duke did, where she said if the seals are broken on the AccuVote machines, it's okay. I have seen, not only on this occasion, but also at a different election I worked, with that seal at the end of the evening when we open up the AccuVote machine to run the paper and finish the night out, have been broken before. They're cut, completely cut. It's not like these zip ties, these red zip ties come off. And this is not the first time I was also told, just slip it back on. Just, if it falls off, just slip it back on. You know, I didn't really think much of it until this election. And I'm quite concerned. I work the polls because everyone in my district is very elderly. And it's my turn to step up and become that person who works at the polls. And I don't want to ever have the job I did questioned, because I really firmly believe that it is my civic duty to do that. Because, again, a person shouldn't be 80 years old working the polls. You can be my age and do that. And I also saw some things at this election that were odd. And again, really didn't think much of it at the time. Young lady came in to vote. She was not registered on the voter rolls there, which is fine. You will do a question ballot. As you're very well aware, a question ballot is the exact same ballot everyone else gets. It just goes into an envelope. You fold the ballot, you fold the ballot in half. We get the identification. You fill out your envelope. We give you the ballot. You're given both the envelope and the ballot, sent to the booth, and told, just fold it in half when you're done, stick it inside, seal it, and give it back to us. The young lady was very upset about the fact that she had to fill the ballot part out with her name, the question ballot part, and she walked away. She didn't want to vote. And then we also caught someone else who had gone into the booth, and once you get we had 4 people working at our polling place, you get a few people standing there, you don't see everyone that comes back out of the booth and goes to the AccuVote machine. I saw one person do it, took their ballot, and went straight to the machine instead of putting it into the envelope, because there's no accountability for the envelopes. They're not numbered, and you don't know how many you have that go out. So you could have everyone filling out a question ballot, and they walk into the polling booth, and then they could come back out and not give you that envelope and just stick that ballot right into the machine. The ballots aren't a different color. There's no accountability there for that. So again, I have friends who know that I work the polls, and they are starting to ask me, are there things that happen? Are there things that are going on? Is it easy? And you know what? It is easy. If you're the chairperson, anyone can be the chairperson, by the way, at a polling place. Anyone. So you ask to be the chairperson, they make you the chairperson, you have 3 other people underneath you, that's all, and you get that machine days in advance that you keep in your house. They tell you have to leave it in fact, at training, don't leave that machine in your car. Something could happen. Put it in your house. That's not okay either. That person, whoever they are, I would hope that they are honest. I would hope that they would never do anything to tamper with that card, but it's very possible. There's a lot of holes in this system that we have.
Okay. Thank you. Just a moment. First, let me thank you for your service in the polling station. It's greatly appreciated. I have questions from Mr. Honeman and then Mr. Flynn.
I just wanted to follow up and thank you for committing your time to a very important process in our community. And my question to you is did you prepare any comments to give to the precinct chair or to the clerk's office or the elections commission? Was there any report?
I did, and I wrote them. They give you a piece of paper to do that. And so I wrote those and then turned them in with the rest of the box and gave it to the chairperson, and they put it into the box. Now, what happens to those, I don't know. And it's optional to put your name on those.
Did you put your name on there?
I believe I did.
Mr. Flynn.
And Mrs. Bell, I just want to let you know I did get your message and listened to it, and I appreciate you conveying those thoughts to me previously. So. And thank you for coming down this evening.
Anyone else to speak? Anyone else at all?
Can you put another question? No?
Yep.
A question?
We've got someone ahead of you.
Oh, okay. He kept saying no. So.
Yeah. One.
Okay.
Good evening. My name's Carly Kay. I'm hoping this is the last time I'm going to have to tell this story, but hopefully this is the correct audience for it. I am a lifelong Alaskan. I registered to vote in Anchorage in fall of 2008. I recently moved, so I updated my voter registration prior to the election. It was probably less than 30 days prior, but I had still been a registered voter. When I received my new voter registration card, it said I needed to go to Baxter Elementary for my polling location, which I did, and when I did, I was not on the roll. I thought once again, oh, it's because I was short of those 30 days. Maybe they didn't have enough time. I'll just vote a question ballot. It'll all even out in the wash. I received a letter saying that my vote was not counted because I had not registered 30 days prior to the election, which was inaccurate. As soon as I received that letter, I contacted Jacqueline Duke as instructed in the letter. I received her voicemail. I left a message. I never heard a response. It was my understanding the voter canvass was to take place last Friday, and then it was rescheduled, and all my letter said was to check the public notice site for the muni. And so while driving to City Hall today, I got out of the car and went to check the site on my phone, and it didn't work. So I had no idea where the meeting location was, because how am I supposed to know when my only source is unavailable? I went inside City Hall, tried to find my way around, got instructed to go to the clerk's office. They instructed me to go to the 8th floor. Once I got there, I was informed that I had missed the meeting. Apparently, it had started and adjourned within several minutes, and I was the only person from the public that had shown up. They graciously re-adjourned, and I am very thankful for that, and heard what I had to say. I filled out a written statement explaining what had happened, and before I left City Hall, I was told that my vote would be counted, but that it had been missed in some sort of secondary review. While glad that I've been told that my vote is being counted, at this point I'm a little hesitant to be assured of that. What proof do I have? How do I know? And if this happened to me, how many other voters did it happen to that weren't able to attend the meeting today? My grandfather joked to me recently that I should run for mayor, but at this point, what's the point if we can't even hold an election for one? So, thank you.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions for you. Mr. Trainee?
Ma'am, do you still have that letter from the city that you were not able to vote?
Yes, I do.
Would you give us a copy of it, please?
I can present the one copy I have with me.
If you would, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Honeman?
Ma'am, thank you for, and I can see you have your little one there with you, so thanks for your persistence in coming to make sure that your voice was heard and your vote was counted. I guess Mr. Hall said it earlier last week when we were doing the work session that, there was a whole lot of failure going on, and sorry that yours was at least inconvenience where you had to come in and actually explain, but I don't believe this is the only one that's been missed, and I'm really highly concerned about that. So, and you said you did write down, you presented something in writing?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Birch?
I just wanted to clarify, you'd mentioned the mayor. I just wanted to affirm that it is the clerk's office in the assembly that oversees the elections.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Assembly members. My name is Laura Herman. I don't need to spell it. I grew up in Anchorage. I registered to vote for the first time in Anchorage. Because of going to school in other places, have not been able to vote in every election. But I was able to vote in the early voting process, which I'm really glad that we have in this city. And I think my vote got counted, but, I didn't receive a letter saying, oh, your vote got counted. Well, it wouldn't have because it wasn't a question ballot, but all of that aside, just turned 23. I have a whole lifetime of voting in front of me, and I have so many friends who think that voting doesn't matter, who don't vote. I am the anomaly with people my age. And when I say, no, there's so many elections in Alaska that have been decided by hundreds of votes, or 100 votes, or 50 votes, and I say, it's so important for you to go vote, how can I use that argument when it's not even going to be counted? Literally, it's not being counted. And I think that you're seeing a huge outpour from the city of concern that this is not okay. And if you say that it's okay, then I will actively, there's a bunch of you who I support on this assembly, but I will actively be involved in revoking all of you because my voice is being taken away when you decide not to investigate this. And it's so important. And it's not right. And I know that we're all coming forward and really imploring you to give our voice power and to really count our votes. But it seems like, why should I even have to stand here and ask you all to do your civic duty, to respect my vote, and to make sure that if this had been an election where assembly members were being elected, I bet that you guys would really want to know if you really won or if you really lost. There were some things I voted for that won. I'm very happy about that. And some things that lost, and I'm sad about that. But it doesn't matter if I won or if I lost, because I know that all of those votes counted. Well, in this case, I don't know. I don't know if this is really the outcome that we're supposed to have, and we need to have that assurance with our elections.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for you. Mr. Horniman?
Laura, thank you for coming out, and certainly for sounds to be on the track for a super voter. I just urge you to try to convince your friends that government isn't perfect. You know, we hire people and people make mistakes. I'm sure with the best of intentions, I'd like to think it was all just a matter of a lot of missteps and errors. Please give us a chance to thoroughly review what went wrong, and hopefully we can at least reinstill to you and others that we're doing it right.
I'll do my part, but you guys have a really huge part to do. I can keep convincing my friends to go vote, but if they don't hear from you guys that their vote matters, then it doesn't matter. So you guys need to do your part.
Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I want to thank everybody who's here for testifying. I really appreciate your comments. And I really appreciate your comments, as to why does anybody have to stand up here before us and practically beg us to hire somebody to investigate this election, not tomorrow, not yesterday, but right now. And I really appreciate that. Even our clerk has asked us to hire and to do an independent investigation. We need to do it now. I agree with you 100%, and thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. There are no other questions.
Thank you.
My name is Elston Lawson, and congratulations, Ernie, I think.
Thank you.
I just have been listening to the comments, and I was a little bit concerned when, Ernie, Mr. Chairman, when I heard you say we're going to have an independent investigator to take a look at the processes and try to put in place, try to correct the existing procedures, almost as if this is a housekeeping matter. And I want to urge you to consider that this is much more than just housekeeping. And in fact, I would like you to consider this potentially a crime investigation, and suggest that you have a forensic investigation rather than simply a housekeeping investigation. And I know the Assembly has authorized forensic audits before, Mr. Starr, through the chair, and I would hope that you would see clear to do the same here, because the level of penetration and analysis in the investigation is critical. Not just hiring an independent investigator, but making sure that scope of services is going to get the job done to the point that we can all be assured that when we cast our ballot, that our vote will be counted. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no questions. Anyone else?
My name is Nancy Lamoureux, and I'm a retired employee of the municipality. Working in City Hall, I've heard and seen a lot going up and down. I was surprised to hear what was going on. We're all supposed to be held accountable in our positions and at City Hall and in law enforcement. And as a big election that this was supposed to be, and as widely covered as it was supposed to be, this is really appalling that we have been failed because of the incompetence of the clerk's office and not taken into consideration how big this was the different things that was involved in this election, and it just went downhill. It just failed. And instead of doing a re-election or an independent investigation, I think that the city owes the people of Anchorage a chance to do another election. That's all.
Thank you. We have no questions.
Thank you.
Just rather quick, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just want to thank you for your service to the municipality, years of service.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you for your time this evening. I was here last week with a request to make the comprehensive annual finance report available in a file format other than PDF. I'm looking for something simple like making it available on the municipal website. This would be a quick and easy thing for the city to do to make very valuable public data easier to access for companies interested in investing in Anchorage and the general public. This would create a new standard for financial disclosure for the municipality, making it much simpler to do data analysis. Now that I've reminded you why I'm here, I was hoping to get more information on how I can get these files available. Last week, the representative for the Finance Department of Anchorage mentioned that it would be difficult to release these files because disclosing the formulas used in the Excel format to create the tables would affect the integrity of those files. The explanation to me seems vague, and I have not received any clarification from the Finance Department by email since the past meeting. Tonight, I've come with 2 questions for the Finance Department that I have not received a response from them on. I would also welcome any questions from the Assembly to me on this proposal. Number 1, is it possible if I could simply have the values of those files without the formulas used to get them? I'm looking to get the tables used in the CAFR, but in an exportable format for data analysis instead of a snapshot of the tables that the PDF file type provides. And number 2, what formulas in the Excel files is the municipality using that cannot be disclosed to the public for the protection of the file integrity? Thank you.
Yes. We need to get your name.
Charles Thompson.
Okay, and we have a couple of questions. Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Charles, for coming back. And you and I have been talking through email. And I just want to tell you that I did have a conversation outside of the municipality's CFO and her comments. I had a conversation with our independent auditor, and she did feel that letting those files out, the Word and Excel files, would jeopardize the integrity of our financial statements. Because, for example, if somebody had those files and they changed the numbers and then they posted it on the web saying that this is the municipality's financial statements, it could cause a lot of problems. And so I tend to agree with her, but I'd like to talk with you a little bit after the meeting on maybe some alternatives. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Horniman.
Mr. Thompson, thanks again for coming back and bringing this up to us. And I need to get clued in and convince myself that this could be problematic. If the municipality holds the numbers and the data as factual, all you're looking to do is for research and comparison data analysis. I fail to see the huge concern. And I was hoping Mr. Ahern was still here that might talk about perhaps data security or something, but that's something that needs to be looked into, and I thank you for coming forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is CJ Miller, and I just had a small concern about the elections that I've not heard anybody mention yet. My concern is that there was a polling place, the Chapel by the Sea, which donated a large sum of money to a campaign, and it just seems a little weird towards integrity to let any polling place be allowed to donate such a large amount of money. And that's just my concern on why we're letting polling places donate money towards a campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions. Anyone else?
Stephen Eagle River. I just wanted to clarify.
Yes, Ms. Osiander.
Ma'am, the election and the poll workers were not the church, but I understand your concern. I've heard that from 2 other people, that we should not allow churches to be polling places. So, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Stephen Gingrich, I'm answering her question. I talked to the Division of Elections this morning, and they said that the chapel by the sea is not going to be a polling place in the future.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else at all?
Congratulations, Chairman.
Thank you.
I came here tonight because I wanted to speak regarding the election. There's been some discussion made. Oh, my name is Jeffrey Humphreys, by the way.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know you, but that is my name. My concern is there's been some call for an independent investigation. I can understand why you would want an independent investigation, but placing the power to oversee the election in the hands of one person is fraught with risks. You cannot ignore the recommendations made by one person if you appoint one to investigate the election. And a group of people would do a more thorough job and will be less likely to come to a false decision, I believe. The Assembly has a responsibility to investigate the election, and I'm sure whatever means you choose to do that will be acceptable. But placing too much power in the hands of one person is generally not a good idea, and I don't think it's called for in this situation. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else at all? Seeing and hearing none.
Adjourn?
Comment?
Motion to adjourn. The meeting stands adjourned. Thank you for coming.